About 500 years ago, on the land that is now my kingdom, a great dragon war took place. Chromatic against metallic dragons, as you'd expect, except this time it was my parents leading the metallic dragons into the fray. Needless to say, my parents won. The chromatic dragons were vanquished, and my parents went on to build the great kingdom of Dorunai from the ashes of that war. As you can imagine, the chromatic dragons that survived were, livid. However, they knew that they and their sect of Tiamat's cult would never be able to take on a fully established kingdom of both elves and metallic dragons. Revenge was effectively out of the picture. That is until about 300 years after the war. It was the 300th anniversary of the kingdom's founding, and the day I was born. The news of House Gwaegalad's heir eventually reached the cult, now much larger over the last few hundred years, and presented them with an opportunity they couldn't pass up. If they couldn't afford a full-fledged attack against a kingdom, what was their next option? But what hurt my parents more than losing their kingdom? Losing their only child.
Over the next 5 years, the cult planned, watched, and waited, until at last, a moment came that they never saw coming.
Your parents, the king and queen of Dorunai, made an emergency trip to the Feywild, leaving you for the first time in your life. After many reticent goodbyes and parting words, they finally said their final farewells, leaving you and your brother in the highly capable hands of your nanny, and a large group of highly trained elven soldiers. One afternoon, you and your brother were being particularly rambunctious as you were cooped up in the castle, and your nanny decided to take you both on a picnic. The basket is filled with all sorts of delicious and fragrant pastries. The picnic blanket is soft and a lovely shade of purple. The forest, like it almost always does, smells like it has just rained.
Are you enjoying yourself, little Mîrowyn?
I just have another cookie, my friend. Yeah. Have you had one of these yet? These are amazing. When are Mommy and Daddy coming back? Hasn't it been like ages and ages and ages ago?
Yes, it's been a week or so, I suppose.
Rhaegar misses him too. Don't you! I just shove a cookie towards his face. Ha! Yes!
He cannot talk. He doesn't have teeth.
I know.
He reaches out to you. He doesn't even have like horns or anything. They're like tiny
No,
little nubs.
I feel a dragon attack. Nanny, help! I just pick him up and I set him on me and I fall backwards.
Your nanny laughs. It's a perfect fall day.
Just before your birthday, the light is streaming through the trees.
You hear the unmistakable sound of the flapping of dragon wings as a dragon lands. You've heard dragons land before, and you assume it's your father.
I roll over and I pin him down. I think they're home! Nanny, I think they're home! I run over and I just hand Nanny Rhaegar and I think that's gonna be him, right? I turn and I just start running towards the trees.
Oh, wait, Mîrowyn and your nanny runs after you.
I turn and look back at her.
You see a battalion of elves rushing towards you ferociously as a green dragon lands behind you. A black dragon head lolls out from behind the green and smiles with a disgusting and evil grin. Lazily it opens its mouth and rains a heavy spray of acid upon them. A cacophony of screams of pain and terror fill your ears as the soldier armor corrodes and their skin begins to melt and burn. The green dragon steps over you, smashing down upon another batch of the soldiers with one clawed foot and then the other. Then it spins very quickly and swipes the rest with its long, strong tail, decapitating your nanny and narrowly missing your brother. He rolls out of her arms as she falls to the ground, and then squirms towards you as you're grabbed by the green dragon and yanked away by their powerful wings into the sky. His wails can be heard in the distance for quite a while, until you're finally too far away to hear them. Eventually you black out from the experience. You are awoken by stabbing pain. Standing over you is a cloaked figure with a bloody knife. You don't know how long you've been out, but you are very weak and very scared and confused.
I'm gonna go home.
The person leans over you and just says, Well, unfortunately for you, you are home now. You are strapped down to this horrible stone table, and everything is bleary. You can't really see very well. Therefore, you can't see that there are runes and sigils surrounding you on this huge table. It's huge to an adult, and let alone to a child. He starts carving into your arm. You yell out as this is the worst pain you've ever experienced in your life. The pain is so awful that after a while, you pass out and awaken in the room. You aren't fed. They pour water down your throat, and you sputter and cough. But they take you back to your room every so often and bring you back to that table and continue carving into you and chanting, and you are in and out of consciousness as this almost drug-induced state, it feels like, is happening to you. You don't know how long goes by. It feels like years. It could be years. You're fed every once in a while. They take you back to your room after about, day 3 of doing this to you. And you're filthy and in pain. And they set a plate of bread next to you. And leave. You open your tiny little cute Mîrowyn eyes. Blink them open.
Big dragon eyes.
And you see next to you this plate of food.
I reached for it, still very, very confused as to why any of this is happening. And everything hurts. And I'm scared.
Yeah.
And I just have the bread and I just have tears falling down my face. I just eat the bread.
Your stomach wasn't even in pain anymore. You were so hungry. And after that, it feels like a rock in your stomach.
Make myself as tiny as possible and just in the corner. And probably pass out again at some point.
They keep coming back for you and keep doing weird stuff to you. And your veins are on fire. Your body's on fire. It feels like years and years pass. This becomes the new normal for a little while. You're there for so long to a child. You don't witness much of what the ceremony is doing, but you do hear the noises of dragons roaring and echoing through the hall every once in a while, which makes you flinch at first, but then, like I said, it becomes the new normal. They don't even have to tie you down after a little while, even. It becomes that just normalized to you. They just have to look at you and keep you in line.
Because I think at some point I was basically comatose toward the end of it. Of course, my mum and dad were notified immediately. Well, as immediately as they could be. It took a couple days for a captain to get through to the Feywild and bring them back. As far as I'm told, I was very well hidden. The search took at least 3 weeks or so, if I recall correctly, until they found me. Mum, Dad came into the place the cult had been holding me, and for lack of a better term, wrecked shop. Even Daddy didn't hold back. He killed one of the dragons that took me, and later helped Mum and the other 2 who had briefly escaped. Then my uncles finished the rest of them off. My father was the first one to find me. I was incredibly worse for wear. He was still bloody. He picked me up in his giant claws and with his usually booming voice, whispered my name. I didn't respond. He transformed into his elven form and frantically tried to get me to wake up, but to no avail. Mummy rushed in, grabbed me, cradling me. Dad was strongly holding on to Mum. They had tears streaking lines in the blood and dirt that stained their face. I was barely breathing. I came up to my parents, who by now had dissolved into shock. The woman had a very commanding presence and was able to get my parents to let her hold me. She took me from my parents' arms and placed a hand to my chest and the other to her mouth, saying a silent prayer to Bahamut. My parents watched on owlishly. The only thing Bahamut could do was slow the progression of the curse. He picked me back up and handed me back to my parents. Both started to cry again as they realized I didn't wake up. Cooper casted a calming spell. Even Uncle Bolshevik was silent. We all went home. I was in a coma for the next year. I didn't wake up once. It took the royal clerics a long while to figure out what was wrong with me. I figured out that the cult had placed a permanent siphoning curse in my blood, draining the energy my soul could provide like a cosmic battery. It took her longer still to figure out how to get rid of it without hurting me more, or even killing me in the process, as it had apparently become a part of my bloodstream itself. But I finally figured out a way to achieve this, but again the process was slow. She had to cleanse my blood vial by vial. Magic and science working together to pull the curse from each ounce of blood. During this time, what I experienced was excruciating. The cult magic had locked me in my mind, living every day as though it were reality, as though I was in the waking world. I spent days with my family and friends as if everything was normal, though there was always the echo of unimaginable physical pain. Not to mention the fact that my dream sequence usually ended in nightmares before they started all over again. Sometimes days would go by, months, years, each stretch of time ending in tragedy. My family brutally killed, my home and people burning, being forced to do as Tiamat commanded. Dramatic dragons raiding and pillaging. Perhaps even more cruel were the long stretches where only good happened. I longed for those dreams, to continue living happily. Each vision for the year and a half I was out was so vivid, so clear. When I woke up, I feared I was still in a coma. In fact, I didn't trust reality for almost another year after that. Slowly, but surely I began to trust that the experiments had worked. Though, even now I suppose it's still a deep-rooted paranoia that I'm still there, asleep, in the clutches of the cult. Often it's awoken with great happiness or tragedy.